Everybody, video here for you today. We're going to go back to ancient America. I'm also going to make probably a video on Egypt at some time in the next day or two. There's something I'm just looking at out there in the desert that I can't get off my mind, and it's bugging me, and that's usually when I end up making a video about something when it just bugs me and I can't get it off my mind. But why don't we go down to ancient America today, talk about a site that's just kind of lost to history. Just kind of a lonely ancient site out here. Not too many people know about this. This is called the Jaketown Mounds, and they are right down here. I need to make about one of these ancient America videos a week at least if I'm ever going to get through my list by the year 2025. But here is a look at the Jaketown Mounds. They are obviously right down here, covered with trees, as a lot of these ancient sites are. I've talked about many of these sites in Louisiana, Mississippi, but it seems this place was occupied for maybe as many as 3,000 years. Just reading a little of the general history, it says the Jaketown Archaeological Site in Humphreys County, Mississippi was occupied by ancient people from around 3,750 years ago to about 1,500 of the current era. So that's over 3,000 years, making it one of the oldest continuously inhabited sites in the region. In view of its importance as a regional trade center of the Poverty Point culture in the Archaic period and long human occupation, the site was listed in the National Register of Historic Places in 1993 and declared a National Historic Landmark in 1990. This is one of many sites that is occupied right in an elbow or a bend in the river like that. They say this place got going around 1750 BC, so that kind of makes it contemporary with what they think is the starting of Poverty Point. And there are many things in these fields down here I find interesting. They say there were smaller mounds built before the bigger mounds, but they just kind of had general ideas on this site. But let's just do a little reading here. Let's go down and take a look at some signs that are right there. Here is a view from Street View. This was named a National Historic Site. It's covered up by trees. You can't visit here. All you can do is stand and look at the trees and kind of guess what's underneath them here at the National Historic Place. Here's a look at the signs. Roadside, no trespassing. You can't go visit this National Historic Site. But you can stand by the road. The small sign says, a significant archaeological site initially settled by the people of the Poverty Point culture roughly 1000 BC and continuously occupied through all subsequent archaeological periods of the lower Mississippi Valley. And then this bigger sign here, let's just blow that up a little bit here. It says, Jaketown is the site of some of the earliest Indian earthworks. And Indian, is that the proper term for this? It says, in Mississippi, of 18 mounds recorded, only mounds A, B, and C are still visible. The earliest stages of Mound A were built in the late Archaic period, the Poverty Point period, roughly 1500 BC to 1350. At least 2 more mounds were built at this time. Following a period of flooding that buried much of the Poverty Point landscape, mound building resumed in the early woodland period, roughly 500 BC. Mounds B and C are Mississippian period constructions, roughly 1200 AD to 1600 AD, so that's quite a huge time period when they think these mounds were constructed. But I found it interesting that they said catastrophic flooding buried much of this Poverty Point landscape. And remember, Poverty Point has that kind of half-arc circle, and many have theorized, including myself, that that was a full circle at one time. So maybe that's just a little more proof that flooding took that out. And there is a diagram of Poverty Point, the large mound there, and that's what I mean. Maybe this was a full circle at one time. Catastrophic flooding took out a lot of this archaeological site, and we just don't know about it. Just doing a little reading here, and there are some artifacts found at the Jaketown site on the right. Clay pipes, red jasper beads, plummets, projectile points. But it says 2 prominent flat-top rectangular mounds are present at the Jaketown site. Mound B, the largest, measures about 150 by 200 feet at its base. It says on its eastern side, a projecting bulge marks a ramp once used as a stairway, and I think that's important. A lot of these mounds did have stairways in them. They weren't just mounds of dirt. Here is my video on the Florence, Alabama mound, and this is the Archaeology mound that I showed in that video. Did have a stairway here. Some of these mounds are not what we see today, that is for sure. Just going on here, there on the right is an old pick from the National Register collection. But just reading a little more about the Jaketown site, and this is near Belzoni, Mississippi. And Belzoni, isn't that a name of an archaeologist that worked in Egypt a long time ago? That rings a bell. But it says numerous small mounds at the Jaketown site, some of which have been dated to the late Archaic Poverty Point period, and that goes back to 1500 BC, have been destroyed by plowing and highway construction. So archaeologists really didn't have a lot to go on here. It says the two large mounds described above are owned and protected by the state of Mississippi. Look at a couple artifacts found at the site here. They call this the Jaketown Site effigy tablet. And they date this here between 2000 BC and 600 BC. Here is a unique find at the site. These are called baked clay tetrahedrons. Some artifacts found here, and they did some excavation work here in the early 1950s. Here's a look at some work done at the Jaketown site, but it says recent studies have identified evidence of catastrophic flooding and large-scale changes in the Mississippi River system between 1000 BC and 500 BC. And they have kind of associated this to the end of the Poverty Point culture, roughly 1000 BC. It says these events are also believed to be linked to a 500-year gap in occupation within many areas of the lower Mississippi Valley, and to the pronounced cultural differences between the Poverty Point and the succeeding early woodland inhabitants of the region. Here is a look at a deep pit they made at the site. That looks like it's down at least 20 feet maybe. It says evidence of flooding during this interval has also been found at Jaketown, where the earliest Poverty Point occupation has been deeply buried by sediment. In some areas of the site, these archaeological deposits are found as deep as 12 feet below the modern ground surface. Here is an article I have used once before just because I thought this was very well done, and it really goes into some deeper research on these people. It says, were Mississippi's ancient mounds designed to send souls to the stars? And the mound builders' afterlife beliefs was a lot like ancient Egypt. It says, placement of 1,000-year-old mounds in Mississippi were arranged to align with the constellations of Cygnus and Orion. It says one of the most closely guarded secrets of this enigmatic culture was the so-called death journey. The death journey involved the Orion Nebula. Here is a reconstruction of the Jaketown site. I think there was 12 mounds here originally. And I also showed this in my video on the Anna site. It says both sites showed alignments to the winter solstice sunset, the setting of Cygnus, and both the rising and setting of Orion's nebula on the same night. And I will leave this link below. I just found it very interesting when archaeoastronomy is put into some of these sites. But that is about all the time for YouTube I got today. If you want to look at this area on Google Earth, I think there are some very interesting things in the area. Possibly some more mounds can be detected also up here. Some question marks. I wonder if those are natural or man-made mounds. But that is a site that was occupied for 3,000 years. Just wrap your head around that. But today, a couple lonely hills out there. Not many people know about this, I'm sure. So that's why I'm making the video today, as with many of these ancient America sites. Hope you thought that was cool, and you all have a very nice day.